Hello everyone, welcome to the Kiki London YouTube channel. My name is Amanda. In today's video, we are going to do a sculpting gel nail tutorial, as I feel as though it's been a little while since we've done a video with the sculpting gel on the channel. So I thought we would do a start to finish video, and we're going to be doing a glitter ombre but with a slightly longer design to some of the ones that I've done on the channel, and it's going to have a little bit of an autumn vibe too. So we're going to start off by cleansing the nail with an alcohol pad, and then I'm going to go in with the Sophia cuticle tool and start pushing back the living tissue and the cuticle. I feel as though this is a really great tool to push everything back that you're not necessarily removing from the skin. So push back all that living tissue and that sort of soft cuticle. And then I like to go in with the Helsinki cuticle tool. This one is great for anything you want to scrape off and remove from that nail plate. Now, I didn't have too much cuticle prep to do. Where I do my nails quite regular for content, my cuticles don't really get too much of a chance to grow up the nail plate, but I will leave a more dedicated prep video in the description box below. Now I'm going to go in with the 180 grit side of the Kiki London file just to neaten up and shorten the free edge, and then I'm going to take my buffer and again just use the 180 grit side to gently buff over the surface of the nail. And you want to be really careful with this step that you don't over buff the nail plate. So we're just going over the entire nail once. So I'm trying not to go over the same area more than once. And I usually do this by going up and down the side walls and then round, use little round circular motions at the cuticle area and across the nail bed. I'm then going to cleanse again with some alcohol, this time to dehydrate, and then we're going to go in with the Kiki London primer. Now the primer is air drying, so you just want to take a small amount and cover the entire nail. I like to just go over the very tip as well, similar to when you're capping. And then for today's video, I'm going to use the peel off base coat. Now I'm using the peel off base coat because as a content creator, this is a brilliant product if you're wanting to create videos or create Instagram pictures and you want to just take the nail off after you've finished application. It is also great as well if you are practicing nail designs or practicing application. And although it's a peel off base coat, it does last for up to 7 days. So you can wear this under gel polish for maybe clients who just are going to an event and can only wear gel polish for a couple of days and then they want to be able to remove it themselves at home, so it's great for that as well. Now I've gone in, applied it the same way I would apply any of my other base coats. Now of course, if you was doing this on a client or a set where you wanted to wear the set for 2-3 weeks, then I would recommend going in with any of the other base coats. They all work with the Kiki London sculpting gel. My personal favorites to pair with the sculpting gels are the rubber color bases. Now because I was applying a nail tip rather than sculpting, I did wipe off the tacky inhibition layer that's left after applying the peel off base coat so that I could glue my tip down with no issues. If you are coming in and sculpting your tip, then you don't need to wipe off that tacky inhibition layer. You can just go straight in with your sculpting form. So I've glued my tip down and then I've just trimmed the length of the tip to make it slightly shorter because I was going for a medium to long length. I'm then going to come in with that 180 grit file again and just neaten up this nail tip. So obviously I hadn't cut it completely straight, so I want to make sure that we've got a nice straight sharp free edge, and then I'm also just wanting to perfect that shape as well and kind of like perfect where the side walls of the tip meet my natural side walls. So just bringing it in a little bit so that there's a nice flow between the natural nail and the tip. Now if you are applying gel products to tips, you want to make sure that you remove the shine from the tip. So I'm just going over with my buffer and just gently buffing the nail to remove all of the shine. Otherwise you will have issues with your gel sticking to the tip. You may find that it peels off because it's got nothing to grab onto. So now to apply our sculpting gel, I'm going to be using the Kiki London Polygel Brush, and for today's design I'm going to use the Vanilla Cream Sculpting Gel. I feel as though this is a really nice, soft, milky, warm tone for autumn. I love these kind of colours where they're soft enough that the nail art is still going to pop, but they just have that nice warm tone to them for the current season that we're in. So I've picked up a medium ball of gel and I'm rolling this off my brush down at the cuticle area, and then I'm just going to simply roll it from side to side and work my way down the nail. But we're focusing on that cuticle area to begin with, so I'm just using little nudging motions to nudge it up close to the cuticle area and then nudge it up close to the side walls as well. Annoyingly here, I thought I had an issue. I thought my camera was out of focus, so I stopped to check my camera. Ideally, when you are doing this, you kind of want to just keep contact with your brush and the gel, because then it just makes it all flow a little bit easier. But as you can see, I'm just going back in and continuing taking that gel from side to side, walking it down towards where the nail tip and the natural nail meet each other. Now if you wanted to, you could do a thin clear base underneath instead of going straight in with your natural colour, whichever nude you've chose to do. Obviously here vanilla cream. However, I decided to just do my thin base with vanilla cream just so it's going to really pop at that nail bed area, because it is quite a sheer shade when you're using it in thin coats. It does have buildable coverage. So we've just done one thin coat at this point. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my stripe liner brush and just use this to get a little bit closer to that cuticle area. So depending on how close you've got with your ball of gel, you might find that you don't need to do this step, but I do find it a little bit easier to get as close as I can with my larger gel brush. And then if I just need to get that little bit closer, I like to do this with the stripe liner brush. This just really ensures that you can get a super close cuticle line without getting any of the product on the skin, because obviously the gel is a lot easier to control with a thinner brush. So that's all I'm doing here. And then at this point, this is kind of just acting like our thin first layer. I did thin it out as we got towards the tip of the nail, because that's where we're going to be adding our glitters, and I don't want the tip to end up bulky. So at the moment we've built up a slight apex, but we're going to work on building that up more. And then we've kept that first layer nice and thin at the tip due to doing a glitter fade. Of course, if you wasn't doing a glitter fade, if you were just sculpting a full nail of gel, you wouldn't need it to be as thin as we go to the tip of the nail. So I did pop that in to cure for 60 seconds, and then we're going to move on to our second layer. So again, coming in with a ball of gel at that cuticle area. And then I don't need this to be as thick as the previous one. I'm just wanting to build up that apex area a little bit more and give the nail bed area a bit more coverage. But we're using that same technique, picking our ball of gel up on the brush, rolling it down at that cuticle area, and then just gently maneuvering the gel from side to side, avoiding touching the skin and side walls. And then as I get to that area where the natural nail meets the free edge, I'm just feathering the gel out so that there's not kind of like a harsh line where the gel just stops. It just thins out nice and smoothly. Then again, coming back in with the stripe liner brush, and I'm using this here to not only get neat cuticle application, but to feather that colour down a little bit more as well, just so it blends out nicely. So that way we're not going to have any issues when it comes to applying our glitters, which is what we will be doing next. So I'm going to pop this colour in to cure again for 60 seconds. All of the sculpting gels require a 60-second cure in an LED lamp. And then for our glitters, we're going to take the gorgeous brown Billionaire. Now I'm going to be layering this up with some raw glitter, but whenever I'm using raw glitter, I always find it easier to go in with a similar color gel polish glitter underneath. This way you just get full coverage a lot easier, because you've got that fine glitter underneath. One is going to allow you to stick your raw glitters down into it, but two, it's going to give you that full on glitter coverage without having to add loads of raw glitter and then end up with a bulky nail. So we've painted on a brown Billionaire to just the tip of the nail, and then I'm taking my ombre brush and blending this down to create that gorgeous glitter fade. This is effortless with the ombre brush. I'm just using the very tip of the brush to lightly pull down some of that color. If you pull down a little bit too much, then you can clean off with some alcohol. And then whilst that's still wet, I'm going to use my ombre brush again to pick up my raw glitters and just lay them down into that wet brown Billionaire. So I'm just picking up small amounts at a time. This is a multi-cut mix, so we've got some larger chunkier pieces in there, so I'm trying to be mindful of where I'm placing them down. I don't want too many of the chunky ones coming down in that fade area, but I do want it to be full on glittery, so I'm trying to layer them up without overlapping them. We're just wanting to layer it over the brown Billionaire, and then I'm just nudging them around until I'm happy with how that glitter fade looks. Now I've got a few videos on the channel where we've done glitter fades down at the cuticle area, on shorter nails, on longer nails, with both the sculpting gel in the pots and the builder gel in the bottle, which is the easy build up range. So if you are looking for a different style, do let me know in the comments below, and if there is a video already up on the channel, I can give you the link. Or if there is a particular design or technique that you would like to see that's not up on the channel, I can try and feature that in a future video. So we're now going to go in and encapsulate, and we're doing that with the crystal clear sculpting gel. So I'm starting off by taking a small bead of this and brushing it over the entire nail. So similar to how you would work with a slip layer, where you go in with a thin wet layer and then apply your builder gel layer over the top. I'm doing this for two reasons. One, I do like to encapsulate with a slip layer, and two, this way of applying your gel is going to make sure it gets all around those chunky glitters, gets in all those little gaps, all the little nooks, and then you're not going to have no issues when it comes to applying your larger ball of gel, because it's going to flow over them nicely. Now, because we had already built up our apex with our vanilla cream, I'm not going in and applying too much of a large ball of gel down at that apex area. And you would have seen as well, I did also apply this slightly back from the cuticle area. Our slip layer went right up to the cuticle area, but I don't need to add any more thickness there. So I'm not taking this encapsulation layer right down to that cuticle area. I've left a small amount to build up the apex, but then I'm predominantly working this ball of gel down towards the tip of the nail to fully encapsulate that glitter and to build up the thickness that we're needing at the tip of the nail. I then did switch to my striped liner brush just to make sure that there was enough gel right at the tip of the nail. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to make sure you have fully covered those side walls. So I'm just making sure that they are covered, because we don't want to have any areas that are not encapsulated, because when we come to filing, we'll file off our glitter, or when it comes to wearing the nail, the structure won't be there and you might end up with breakages. I then looked at the nail from all angles and felt as though there was just a little dip on the right side where there wasn't enough gel. So whilst our previous ball of gel was still wet, I just went in with a little bit more just to make sure everything was encapsulated and the full structure was correct. I then did hold the nail upside down for a few seconds to help that gel self level, and then this is what the nails are looking like when it's fresh out of the lamp. So you can see I have a slight apex, and then the nail tapers off down towards a nice thin tip. I am going to still file this. It doesn't need loads of filing, but I just want to refine, make sure the shape is nice and sharp, make sure that there's no excess gel or any bulky uneven areas. So if you are going to be filing your sculpting gel, you want to remove the tacky inhibition layer that's left behind after curing. So I just did this with an alcohol wipe, and then I'm going to come in with my file. Now I find the sculpting gel files super easy, so predominantly predominantly a lot of the time I will just go in with the 180 grit side of my file. But if you find that your application is quite thick or quite uneven, if you're new to using sculpting gel and your application is a little bit bulky, you can use the 100 grit side. You would have seen I did a few swipes with the 100 grit side, and then I was pointing out I switched to the 180 because I just felt as though it was taking off more gel than I wanted to. And obviously at this point you don't want to over file, because then you're going to end up with a too thin nail or end up with the structure being wrong and again risking breakages. This, as you can see, it filed so quickly. So I've just literally done a little bit of filing just to refine everything, gone around that cuticle area just to make sure it's nice and flush at the cuticle, so then that way as the nail grows out you're not going to have this harsh ridge where your previous cuticle application will meet the natural nail. After filing, I do always like to go in and buff the nail, so I start off with the 100 grit side and then we'll go over a few times with the 180, and then this is what the nail looks like after filing. I was just trying to show you guys it's still nice and thin at the tip because we don't want a thick bulky tip. You are then going to want to give your nails a really good scrub to remove all of that dust. So I like to go in with the dust brush, really dust the entire surface of the nail, and then go in with an alcohol wipe just to make sure you get rid of all of that dust. It's then time to bring the nail back to life and give it a beautiful high shine. So for this step today I'm going to be using the crystal top coat. Any of the Kiki London top coats do work with the sculpting gel. If you are using the sculpting gel for strengthening purposes, maybe because you've got clients who have quite weak nails, then I would recommend using it in combination with the rubber system. So you could go in with rubber base, sculpting gel, and then rubber top coat. You can of course also go in with the matte top coat if you would prefer a matte finish. We are then going to finish up with some coconut escape cuticle oil, and then this was the finished result. So I'm really loving that slight hint of vanilla that comes through in this shade, and I felt as though it worked beautifully with this copper glitter. So let me know what you thought of this design in the comments below. If you did enjoy today's video, please do give it a thumbs up and hit that subscription button if you haven't already, and I shall see you all again in the next video. Lots of love, take care, bye bye.